Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Nestled in a classic New England setting amid 200-year-old elm trees and charming colonial homes, stately sea captains' homes, and charming Cape Cod salt boxes, Shoreway Acres is a graceful blend of Cape Cod's past and present. Shoreway Acres, proud sponsor of Falmouth Community Television.
Green Harbor Waterfront Lodging is nestled in a woodland setting on a picturesque ocean inlet. Green Harbor offers a family waterfront vacation. Enjoy our private boating beach with dock, rowboats, and paddle boats, oversized heated outdoor pool, and kiddie pool. Relax in our waterfront and beachside accommodations. 548-4747 or gogreenharbor.com. People think that a locally owned and operated appliance store may not offer what they need. Actually, we have trained and dedicated sales associates, expert delivery and installation, professional repair service, and personal customer service. Plus, we have access to a huge local warehouse with over 6,000 models in stock. Crane Appliance. We call the Cape and Islands home. CARLSON Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. CARLSON Printing for all your printing needs.
Hosting services for fctv.org are provided by Meganet Communications. Meganet offers a wide array of internet services including Mega Backup Cloud Service, server colocation, T1, fiber, Metro Ethernet, as well as telephone services such as hosted PBX and digital voice. Their #1 goal is to keep your communications network up and running and allow you to focus on growing your business. 877-634-2638 or meganet.net.
The Quarterdeck Restaurant, located on Main Street in the heart of Falmouth, specializing in fresh local seafood and other classic American cuisine, featuring a full bar with friendly staff. And the Bucatino Restaurant and Wine Bar, located in North Falmouth just off Nathan Ellis Highway, featuring catering services with 2 full event rooms serving up classic Italian cuisine. The Quarterdeck Restaurant and Bucatino Restaurant and Wine Bar, we're here to serve all our friends in Falmouth.
Select Board meeting. I am going to call the meeting to order, and in order to do so, we are conducting this meeting virtually, so I will ask everyone when I say your name to just note that you are present so that we can be sure that it's recorded correctly. So from the Select Board, English Braga present, Nancy Taylor.
Taylor present.
Sam Patterson. Oh, I think you're muted, Sam.
Patterson present.
Thank you. Doug Jones.
Jones present.
Doug Brown.
Brown present.
And for staff, we have Town Manager Julian Suso.
Suso present.
And Assistant Town Manager Peter Johnson-Staub.
Peter Johnson-Staub present.
Great. And as always, we have our IT staff making everything run smoothly. So thank you to Greg and Thomas. So just a quick reminder that this meeting is being conducted remotely per the governor's orders back from March 12th, 2020 related to the COVID-19 virus. A reminder that individuals can participate in this meeting via the chat function. And if they visit the town website, they'll be able to find the link for the Zoom invitation and be able to log in so that they can participate and share their thoughts or comments when it comes to that part of the agenda that they wish to comment on. Just to make things run smoothly, if you are not speaking, please just mute your volume so that we don't pick up any background noise. And if there are any questions while the meeting is proceeding, if I don't see people raising their hands, whether it's members of the board or guests, certainly just unmute yourself and let me know if I've missed you. But otherwise, try and keep it muted so that we can hear the person speaking. All of the materials are included on the select board's meeting packets, which you can find that on the town website. And that's all posted in advance so that folks can look at the material that we have before us this evening. Let's see. We will trying to see if there are any other important rules. Everyone's heard these so many times now, but I think that's it. For individuals who are watching from home who aren't comfortable using the Zoom function and using the chat function on Zoom and joining us, just remember that each week in advance, if you send us an email and you want us to read that either into the public comment period, which is a 2-minute period of something not on the agenda, we can do that. Or if you want to make a comment on something on the agenda, just note that and we will do that for you. We're happy to just facilitate in any way possible participation and public input. Okay, great. I think what we'll do now is we'll now start with Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Doug. You just join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Great. Okay. Anything for recognition, Doug Brown?
I don't really have anything particular to recognize tonight. If anybody else wants to volunteer with something that they've noticed this week, that'd be fine.
Anyone else have any thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, I think we should recognize Jane Abbott for her many, many years of advocacy here in town. I don't think that should go unrecognized.
Absolutely correct. Thank you, Sam.
A Hallmark person that advocated for many important causes over many, many years. High energy, almost indefatigable. I can remember watching her ride her bicycle down the Ticket Highway many, many, many times. But truly a loss to the community, and really respect all of the contributions that she's made over the years.
Great point, Sam. And I know we talked about her at our strategic retreat because it was a little bit closer to her passing, but I know that that wasn't aired in the same way that this is with the same number of people. So thank you for just recognizing her again and her legacy here to this community, and the fact that she continues to inspire sort of that next generation of those incredibly committed public servants that we have in Falmouth who take on enormous projects and just move things forward in a way that you just don't see in every community. So she really is an inspiration, and she will be very, very, very missed. So thank you, Sam.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned last week, she got the Person of the Year award from Falmouth Water Stewards because she was always an advocate for the environment. One of my favorite people. Really nice lady.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks, everyone. Okay, any announcements? Okay. Let me see if there's anyone. What we would do now is generally have public comment. I'm just going to look. I just see that there is, I don't see any particular comments now, although Doug Brown, would you, I know we received a couple of letters actually, and a request to read into the public record a letter involving the stand in North Falmouth selling some of the political paraphernalia. And I know I saw your email that the letter certainly is going to take up far more than the 2 minutes allotted. But I think you were going to summarize it and just kind of get the most important points out.
Well, this is a letter from Lilia Frenton, and she did ask me to read, in addition to her fairly long email, she wanted me to read what was in the letter. So I told her I would just make a note that this is in regard to a petition that was formed by residents. I don't know if they're all from North Falmouth, but I'm going to guess that most are. And there was like 184 people that signed this petition online and voicing their concerns about just the general situation down there at the North Falmouth Post Office. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this letter. And this is from Lilia Frenton, but she says she's representing a larger group. So to Falmouth Select Board, request to add our discussion of a citizen's petition to the August 24th agenda. Thank you for considering the addition of our petition to the upcoming 24th meeting of the Select Board. Petition was created online to facilitate residents and visitors voicing their concerns about the location, impact, and stressful situation created by a large peddler display of provocative merchandise being sold from a truck prominently parked on a grass strip in front of our community's North Falmouth Post Office. It's our understanding it was legally licensed, but we question if its dimensions, height, and breadth, character, and huge banners, flags, t-shirts, often displaying vulgarities we cannot repeat here, were taken into account when it was permitted.
Oh.
We also question if there's an enforcement away from public sidewalk and within 10 feet of a narrow roadway. We also question if the distraction created by this display and the traffic entering and exiting the plaza and the safety of drivers on that highway were considered, especially with the overcrowded traffic, slowing down to get a view and reactions being hurled by drivers as they pass by. As residents and visitors, our immediate concern is the location at the post office and therefore the unavoidable stress it's causing our residents and visitors. Unlike a storefront, which is governed by many Falmouth laws and regulations of signage, etc., this visually boisterous location offers no choice to the people who live, work, past the plaza, and especially for residents of our community who must use the post office. In fact, some are being forced to travel to other post offices so as to avoid the confrontation with this display. This must have some bearing on licensing. Therefore, we are requesting several actions be taken by the Select Board. Number one, to review the 30-year-old license regulations to ensure they address the safety, well-being, and quality of life of our town, recognizing the change and its increased health concern. Already the site of some unpleasant exchanges, and with that in mind, we request the board conduct a study as soon as possible of the appropriateness of the location of this peddler with an eye to future peddlers. Number two, further, we request the board visit the site to ascertain for themselves the kind of problems so many residents feel they face on their way to and from the post office plaza, to decide whether this particular peddler is indeed creating a public attractive nuisance, and to take action to protect the public's.
Doug, your feed keeps freezing. Am I the only one who's seeing that?
Need not interfere with the public right to post office business, reasonably expected quality of life, daily life, as well as the safe flow of traffic. Respectfully submitted, Lilia Frenton, Precinct 5 Town Meeting Member, Old Main Road, North Falmouth.
Thank you, Doug. You cut out a little bit, but I think we got the general gist of it. Just a reminder to Ms. Franton and to everybody that when things are part of public comment, we cannot respond to them because they are not duly noted on our agenda. So we can't have a discussion about that tonight. But thank you very much, Doug, for sharing that on behalf of her. Were there any other correspondence regarding a request for public comment from anyone? I didn't see any others, but okay. Okay, well, moving to. Oh, sorry.
There's some stuff in the chat, but it's just passing on endorsing Bob Berglund from affirmative action. I don't think that's
Berglund. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Under summary of action, administrative orders. Vote to participate in the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, or the PACE program, as provided in General Laws, Chapter 23M, Section 1, and sequences beyond that. So. Mr. Suso, do you want to just sort of note what this is and the benefit that we would derive from it if we voted it?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The state PACE program, in a nutshell, is a program that allows qualified private businesses to make energy-related improvements and allow them to be assessed as a betterment to the property. And this has been reviewed internally by our Energy Committee as well. And you do have a memorandum from Frank Duffy with a suggested vote for the board to consider should you choose to adopt this, and we certainly so recommend.
Excellent. Any thoughts from the board about this?
It's not mandatory. It's just another option that businesses would have. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mhm.
Totally optional.
I know I attended a briefing. I think I recall. I can't recall whether Julian was part of it or not, but the Energy Committee hosted a discussion by several state employees to describe the space program. And essentially, what it is that I think, and correct me, Julian, if I'm misspeaking, but it's a loan program that the town provides to commercial companies, and the loan is paid back through a betterment process. And the only question I have for Julian really is, how much of an overhead administrative cost is that likely to be? It seems fairly innocuous.
Well, it's a great question. The challenge on that is the program is so new. We don't really have any a significant number of communities from which we can gather that. There will be some administrative costs. We've discussed that with the finance director, Jennifer Mullen, and collector, Patty O'Connell. But, we are prepared to support that given the importance on saving energy in private businesses.
Right.
Thank you.
Doug Jones. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sam, and then Doug Jones.
I'm through. Thank you.
Okay. Doug Jones.
I was just going to make the motion.
Okay. Any other questions? I had one quick one. Is this something that we have run by the finance committee as we usually would?
I don't believe this has been discussed with the finance committee. It's not a grant program, but
Okay.
we can
Yeah.
certainly, take a step back and ask for them to take a position on it.
No, you know what? I was thinking along the lines of the process we use for grants. So thank you. It is a different situation.
Okay.
Doug, do you want to go ahead and make the motion then?
In accordance with General Laws, Chapter 23M, Section 2, I move that the town of Falmouth participate in the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, the PACE program, as provided in General Laws, Chapter 23M, Section 1 and following, to enable qualifying commercial or industrial property to participate in the Commercial Sustainable Energy Program administered by the Massachusetts Department of Development Finance Energy, MDFA, and the town should be authorized to assess, collect, remit, and assign betterment assessments for energy improvements for a benefited property within the town in accordance with the provisions of the PACE program.
Patterson, second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing
Okay.
none, vote. Oh, go ahead,
Just
Sam.
ask one more question. I assume that the betterment would be recorded on the deed. Is that correct? And would go with the property?
To the best of my knowledge, that's the case. We'll confirm that with town council.
All right, thank you.
Great. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Great, thank you. Next, we have approved conservation restriction associated with the 300 Committee's purchase of a 10.2 acre conservation restriction on the Pariah Dog Farm located at 279 Trotting Park Road, Falmouth. I know we had all of our information in the packet. I see Jessica Rittenauer. Do we want to bring her on board? Welcome. You just want to unmute yourself and just give us, obviously we had a lot of information in the packet, but just for the public's understanding of what this is.
Absolutely. Thank you all. I'm Jessica Rittenauer, for the record, Executive Director of the 300 Committee Land Trust. And this evening, we're requesting Board of Selectmen approval for a conservation restriction on property known as the Pariah Dog Farm. It's owned by Matthew Churchill, located at 279 Trotting Park Road, And this is a conservation restriction, certainly restricting all development rights, which is standard with the conservation restrictions that the 300 committee works on. This one has a primary purpose of permanently protecting working farmland. So that's the primary goal of this project. And it's actually funded in part by the United States Department of Agriculture Natural Resource Conservation Natural Resource Conservation Services Program, which provides funding for land trusts who are interested in transactions with farmers for permanent protection of land. So as you know, we have a number of conservation restrictions in Falmouth. We hold 33 conservation restrictions right now. So this would be added to that inventory of monitoring and checking in. It's a long-term relationship with the property owner and confirming that conservation values are upheld. I think the difference and the distinction here is that it's for the primary purpose of working farmland. So what we have scheduled is a closing. This is a transaction that we expect to be able to complete in September with funding assistance from USDA. And this is a really important step in that process of ensuring that we have town select board approval for the restriction. We did do the step already of the Conservation Commission. That's a municipal certificate, which was part of the packet. The Conservation Commission vote outlines public benefit for the conservation restriction, and that ended up in the bulleted list that we submitted. Certainly hope that you will vote in favor of this project tonight. We find it to be a very valuable property for conservation and working farmland. And this is a project that we've been working on for a couple of years now with Matthew Churchill. Really came after the Tony Andrews Farm acquisition. And it's just, I think, another wonderful example of local agriculture and how land conservation and ag can work together to permanently preserve land with multiple benefits.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, I just want to note for the record that I had some legal work that involved Mr. Churchill. It has nothing to do with this particular transaction, but I did want to note that for the public record. I don't represent him, so there isn't any conflict in this vote. I represented another party, but other than that, if we don't have any other questions for Jessica, this is great. Certainly want to really support the agriculture in town, which we know was such a big part of our history and has, diminished over the years. Doug Jones, did I see your hand up?
To approve the conservation restriction.
Okay, do I have a second?
Patterson, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you all. Thank you
Great,
so
we
much.
really appreciate it. Lots
Thank
of hard
you.
work.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
support. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, next we have vote to approve expenditure from the Beach Department donation account in the amount of $500 for the Dr. David Garber Dare to Be Great Award given to a lifeguard. This is something that we've done each year. And certainly this year with all the challenges that our staff in the beach department has really, that they've really undergone and taken on, seems like a very, fitting year in particular to have this award. And is there anything additional that you wanted to add to that, Mr. Suso? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to confirm that the award, as voted by staff, is going to be presented in the amount of $500 to Bridget Buckley. And Bridget is in her 8th year of employment with the town, and we appreciate her continued support and assistance as an important element in the beach staff. She was also the head lifeguard at MBL Stony Beach this year. So we thank Bridget for that, and it's a wonderful recognition, well deserved.
Great, thank you. Congratulations to Bridget. Doug?
I'd move approval to the expenditure of $500.
Okay, do I have a second?
Patterson, second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Okay, great. Next, we have vote to accept a very, very generous donation in the amount of $15,000 from an anonymous donor to the Conservation Department donation account for the Coonamessett Greenway Heritage Trail and Gateway and for future river restoration projects. So really just, so thankful for this type of generosity and for the, just getting us closer to completing what is really a legacy project for the town. So significant donation, and we have quite a bit of gratitude.
I'd move approval to accept the donation of $15,000.
Patterson, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Certainly a
Seeing none.
very generous offer.
Indeed,
Yes, very. Seeing no further discussion, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, I.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Brown?
Brown eye.
And Jones?
Jones, aye.
Great, thank you. Next, we are going to hear from Peter Johnson-Stubb about the vote to authorize issuance of a request for proposal for lease of the Emerald House, 67 Davisville Road in East Falmouth. This has been something we've talked about as a board for a while, and we're just kind of getting ready to take that next step. So Peter, if you just want to, obviously we had everything in our packet, but if you want to just kind of walk through where we are, what this means. Nancy?
Just a quick question.
Yep.
I read through everything on this. Who at this point has shown any interest in this property? Has anybody yet?
Yes. And so one of the groups that has shown an interest is the, and I'm going to get their name wrong and I apologize, but it's the Cape Verdean Museum of Cape Cod. And they are a nonprofit organization, 501c3, that has come together from representatives from across Cape Cod. They have a number of items that they would like to actually have a physical space to display some of their, some of the stuff that they have, photographs and other things to really talk about the heritage of the Cape Verdean experience and contribution. Again, with an RFP, obviously it's open to anyone, but that is a group that has expressed some particular interest.
Thank you.
Yep, Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, just for the public's benefit, an overview of what this request for proposals and hopefully the lease to follow the request for proposals is about. The board will be familiar with the Emerald House structure itself, of course, which is an historic house that was built, I believe, in the 1800s. It was acquired by the town in 1995. There are two parcels of town-owned land. The Emerald House sits on a parcel of land that's almost 5 acres, and the adjacent parcel is nearly 4 acres. The board had a discussion of potential uses of the entirety of those two parcels and identified several uses that the board wished for the staff to move forward with, staff, I should say, and community members. One is an all people's play space, and the other is community gardens. The third is a potential affordable housing development in the back of the property. And as far as the historic structure itself, the board discussed some options and directed the town to prepare a request for proposals to seek entities that meet zoning requirements and will provide a use that allows for access to the interior of the building so that the public can continue to enjoy and be aware of and familiar with the historic property. So as far as the request for proposals go, the potential uses are limited by zoning. It's pretty much to philanthropic, library, and museum uses. So those are the uses that we're seeking to promote. We did note, as you see in the draft request for proposals, that the board had asked specifically for us to express a preference for uses that connect with the Portuguese immigrant heritage on the property and with farming, the heritage of Portuguese immigrant farming on the property. So any of those touch points. So we have crafted a proposal for that purpose, and obviously the reason that we issue and advertise the request for proposals is to see, who's out there and who might be interested. And the criteria for selecting the entity that will be awarded a lease is outlined in the proposal, and for the public's benefit, the priority here is not necessarily to maximize rent. It is to identify a use that meets the town's objectives, as I just outlined.
Great, thank you. Any further questions for Peter? Yes, Sam.
Yeah, and just an observation that this house actually essentially abuts the East Falmouth Elementary School. So I think it could very well serve as a resource for the school and hopefully some of the other schools in our town.
Great point. And, you know, just obviously to have buildings, town properties just sitting empty when they could be, you know, utilized for an important resource that kind of benefits a town. You know, a lot has been going on. I just want to thank Peter, you know, for continuing to push this forward, because I know there's, you know, a lot of other things on his plate, but this is something that this board has been, you know, really talking about for a while. And we do want to get that space occupied, because, you know, that needs, you know, the buildings really do benefit from having people in them and not just sitting there vacant. Any questions about the details for the RFP at all? Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize the issuance?
I would move to authorize issuance of the RFP.
Patterson, second.
Okay. I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we are actually right on time for our public hearing. So we have a hearing tonight. Let me find the notice. Okay, this is a flow neutral bylaw evaluation of request for variance. This is, let me read the public notice that was published. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth will hold a public hearing on Monday, August 24th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. on the application of Fashion Foods, LLC for a wastewater flow variance under Chapter 180, Section 56 of the Code of Falmouth, the so-called flow neutral bylaw, for a restaurant on Lot 1B, Worcester Court at Spring Bars Road in said Falmouth, parcel 3915048001B. Okay, I don't think I need to read the section that talks about the remote meeting. This is per order of the Board of Selectmen. Publication date was Friday, August 7th, 2020 in the Falmouth Enterprise. So we've had several of these hearings now since we put in place the policy around these waivers. I do think I see council coming in for, yep. Good evening.
There I am. Hi.
There you are. Good evening.
Thank you.
Welcome. So if you want to, obviously, you know, we had quite a bit of information that was in the packet, but if you want to sort of go through your presentation, and then we can have the further discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For your record, I'm Bob Ament. I'm an attorney in Falmouth. I represent the applicant Fashion Foods LLC, which is a trio of Cape Cod gentlemen who operate Wendy's in other towns and would like to operate a Wendy's restaurant in Falmouth. They've entered into a long-term lease arrangement with the owner of the property, the vacant lot, vacant except for a lot of pavement for parking, at the corner of Spring Bars Road and Worcester Court. That's Sharon Muller, who with her husband has owned the property for many decades. There used to be a car wash on the property, but now it's just the pavement. The property is properly zoned for the proposed use, a Wendy's restaurant with a drive-through, requiring a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals and site plan review from the Planning Board. I can try to show you. I had here a plan which you have showing the proposed layout of the restaurant. But it will be the planning board and the Board of Appeals who are mostly concerned about the design and traffic issues and the like. In order to have a restaurant on the site, we need to be able to hook into the sewer. The property is in the Little Pond Sewer District. A fast food restaurant with a proposed 50 seats requires a design flow under Title V of 1,000 gallons per day. By right, one could have, I think it's 451 gallons per day. Thank you, Peter. And so the request, it's a modest request. 1,000 gallons per day would be the amount of flow that three bedroom apartments would require. If the restaurant did not have a drive-through, there's a higher per seat requirement. One could only have a 28-seat restaurant on the site. So the request for a business-owned property in this location, right behind Cappy's, next to other commercial property across the street from a bank near the Falmouth Mall. It seems to be a pretty reasonable request. The selectmen need to determine that there's capacity in the municipal system for the proposed flow, and you need to be advised by the Board of Health that a Title V septic system could be installed for the proposed use on the lot. And you've received correspondence from the wastewater and superintendent and from the town's health agent that covers both of those provisions. So we've submitted a bit of information about the applicants, support letters that attest to their being good business people we'd like to have in Falmouth. And we hope that you'll vote favorably on this request for the variance. This is the first step in permitting. Without the sewer connection being allowed, there's no more permitting to be done. But if the selectmen approve the variance, then we will be going to the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board. If there are questions, of course, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions at this point? Go ahead, Nancy.
Yes, I have a question through you, Madam Chair, to Attorney Ament. When I look at the neutral flow bylaw and I look at number 3 and under number 3.1, and it says that wastewater connections that will provide significant year-round economic benefits to the Falmouth community. This should be documented with supporting data on employment, revenue generated, taxes paid, etc. And then I also reference Attorney Ament's letter in paragraph 2, where it speaks to redevelopment will improve the site, create jobs, increase tax base, and generate meals tax revenue. And I also want to make note of a recommendation from Cape Cod Healthcare. So my question through you, Madam Chair, is how many, and I don't see this documented, how many people do you predict would be employed at this Wendy's? Number one. Number two, would those employees be full or half-time? I'm trying to assess the benefit to the Falmouth community. And thirdly, is Wendy's paying insurance benefits for their workers?
Well, I think those are good questions, Ms. Taylor. I'd like to refer you to the correspondence that was submitted to the board directly from the applicants on their Wendy's stationery, where they discussed their employees and their response to the COVID emergency. Their response was to lay off nobody, but rather to increase the hourly wages rather significantly for all classes of workers. They do expect to invest in this project about $2 million. I don't know what the Falmouth assessment will be on the taxes on this site, but I'm sure it's going to be a substantial increase of tax revenue to the town. I think that Terry Smiley is probably available to join as a participant in this and would be better able to answer the questions in particular. But this is a year-round restaurant, which would have numerous employees that for the industry would pay very well. And there would be a significant amount of construction revenue to people in the town. I hope that somewhat answers your question.
I'll go back to my specific questions. And I did see the note on the Wendy stationery, and it did speak to increasing people's pay, not laying people off. I didn't see where it talked about any prediction of how many Falmouth people would be employed. And for me, that's really important for this issue. And also, I really would like to know about benefits for Falmouth people.
So if we
like
can,
health insurance.
okay. So if we can, Attorney Ahmet, if you want to see if Mr. Smiley can either be brought in, if he's, is he one of the participants?
I believe he is.
Okay, or one of the attendees, excuse me.
I believe he's an attendee.
Okay. I'm just taking a look to see. I don't see his name listed here, but he could be under something else. So if we can maybe see if we can get an answer to that while I'm going to.
Do you see Usama El-Shawari?
I do, yes. Okay, if we could bring in Usama El-Shawari, that would be great. And while that's happening, and hopefully we can get some answers to those questions that Nancy has raised, but while that's happening, I saw someone else had their hand up. Was it you, Doug Brown? Go ahead.
Just while we're waiting for the other person to come on, I noticed in Mr. Tom Bott's planning office memo that typically these type of jobs, it takes 3.3 people to earn enough money to buy a house at the wage level that they're at, 1.8 earners to rent. So it's not exactly what they're targeting for economic development.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think you're aware that immediately adjacent to this corner site, a substantial affordable housing project has just been, is being completed. I'm not sure if it's occupied as yet. I think providing jobs for people who might live there or other residents of the town is important. I think that providing restaurant opportunities is important. I think that as demonstrated in the letter, at least in response to the COVID emergency, the particular applicant is extremely responsible. I don't think that we can have a town that doesn't have any development that provides jobs at all levels of income. But what we can do is hope to have projects that have people in them who pay well and treat their employees well. And that's what seems to be the case. But hopefully Usama El-Shawari can speak to this.
Great.
I see that. I could just.
Oh, I'm seeing that. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I just wanted to follow up that this is a little different than just town-wide. This is a specific planning area, and also the sewer connection. We got to start being a little more careful with those. So that's the reason we're giving a little more scrutiny. I mean, personally, I like Wendy's, and I think the business owner's presentation and the recommendations and references are great. It's just more of a planning issue right now for me.
Well,
thank you, Doug. Oh, go ahead. You can respond, Attorney Ahmet, and then Sam Patterson, and then we'll have some response to the specific questions about employment. Go ahead.
It's true that this is part of a future planning district that involves the Falmouth Plaza area and other adjacent areas. This is a significant portion, that area of the business zone in town. There's little new business zones being created, if any. This is the appropriate location for this kind of restaurant. I think Wendy's is perhaps an upscale fast food restaurant, and certainly those operated by the applicant probably meet that description. I don't think it's unreasonable to have a restaurant like this, a new restaurant like this, in the area that's proposed, next to lots of other business, where people are coming for commercial purposes, next to the Falmouth Mall, next to the other businesses on Worcester Court. If not here, where would you have this business? And this applicant has actually been looking for a site for many years. And I think there's very little business activity that could take place on this site that wouldn't require a variance. And this is really a very small variance request for this number of flow. We actually explored the possibility of putting some housing on the site, perhaps above the restaurant, and having mixed use. And the site isn't large enough for that, given the parking requirements, and that would simply increase the sewage flow requirements. We used to have a car wash there, and right now it's a vacant parking lot that's not very attractive. It's going to be a substantial investment on this. And, this isn't a scientific organization that's going to be providing high-paying technical jobs. No, it isn't that. It's a 40,000 square foot piece of property. And if I told you it was going to be offices, I wouldn't be able to tell you that it was going to have more employment opportunities created as a result of that construction. If I told you it was going to be a few residences, which would also require flow variance, there might be benefit to that, although we have a large housing project right next door. But I wouldn't be able to tell you that would create jobs. I think that I appreciate the concerns. I appreciate that economic development is a part of it, but I think this is that. Is it perfect in every respect? No, I don't know if you can get the perfect use there that's really going to provide a whole lot of jobs on this particular 40,000 square feet. Maybe you'll get another retail store and you'll be talking about retail employees. And I don't know if they're going to be paid a lot more than, I probably wouldn't be paid as much in this case. I think this is actually going to provide for the space involved a fair amount of jobs. You put a bank there, you have some relatively low paid employees in the bank.
We don't need any more banks. We have so many banks in this town, between banks and medical facilities. I don't know that we have much else. Sam, go ahead, and then I do want to get some specificity about wage and to answer to the question that Nancy asked. So we
if Usama can answer that, fine. What I have been told is that year-round employees make around $40,000 a year in similar restaurants, and that managers make about $60,000 a year.
Okay.
I think better information could come from Usama, but I think that to seek the perfect instead of acknowledge that this is good would be a mistake.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sam.
Yes, I might say that as a school teacher of high school kids, these kinds of establishments provide part-time jobs for students who are trying to save toward college, or maybe that automobile that they're hoping to be able to purchase or maintain. They also represent jobs for many people who don't have a professional background and who don't have the credentials in order to be able to qualify. They also provide the opportunity for many people whose skill level is probably not capable of earning a $40,000 job. So these kinds of job opportunities are jobs for a certain segment of our population, and I don't think we should exclude them from opportunities. So just wanted to mention that. I mean, it would be nice to have office space for physicians and there's assistants and their receptionists, but there is a cohort in our community that needs these kinds of jobs, even as a second job.
Thank you. If we could bring in Osama, please, to maybe fill in some of the specifics.
He's in as a panelist. He just doesn't have his video on.
Okay, great. Welcome. If you wanted to just share some further information specifically about what individuals would tend to earn and how many folks would be employed and about benefits that are offered to the employees.
Good evening. My name is Osama Sahrawi. I'm trying to start my video, but it's not working. But I'm to be here tonight to answer these questions. We are very excited to have the opportunity to be in the town of Falmouth. I have my business partner with me here sitting next to me as well for this meeting, Ernest and Terry Smiley. And what we have, we average about between 30 and 35 employees on an average. And as Mr. Patterson, he said that sometimes some students, come in and work for a few months and leave. So there's always some employees positions available. Our crew people now, the standard crew people currently making $14 an hour, which is about $1.25 higher than the minimum wage, the state minimum wage. Our managers make between, 45,000 to almost 70,000 with full benefits. We provide health insurance under the state, law. We offer it to everybody. It's the same policy for management as the crew, as long as you work in, the required hours, which is the 30 hours. And we offer full-time opportunities for anybody who wants it. Here on the Cape, we have 5 locations, 3 in Cape Cod and 2 in Plymouth. And we fully staffed. We haven't lost an employee, maybe 2, 3 over the COVID. And we never cut our hours. We never cut pay. We continue to pay even more. And we provided a very good essential service for the town and for all our clients. Sorry. And we give our employees free meals during COVID, during the whole, 4 or 5 months. And we also have health insurance. We offer, we have 401k and, we offer it to any interested. We match it up to 4% of the salary. So I think we are a very good employer, and we have, people who've been with us for between 25 years, working for us for 25 years in the fast food industry, which is unheard of, till 10, 15 years. We have a lot of, employees that they stayed with us, never left. So I can take pride of saying as a family business, we have second generation employees coming in. So we feel very good about our relationship with our employees. We just had an employee satisfaction survey. We got 86%, highly satisfied. So
great. Thank you. If you'll just stay in case there are any further questions. Mr. Jones.
Absolutely. I guess 2 things we have to talk about. We've heard from many, many people concerning this project. And some of the concerns have had to do with traffic and parking in the area. And I'll just remind this board that is not something we're to consider. That's up to the planning board to determine the location. That we're discussing tonight is whether to grant the flow variance for the sewer connection. And I would echo what Mr. Brown said is I'm really cautious about how close we are to hitting our maximum. I know that Ms. Lowell has said that we can do it, but I just am very leery about how close we come to what we're allowed to be able to continue to treat at this point.
Thank you. One thing I would say though, and Attorney Ahmet, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about it this way, but just that likely anything proposed for this space would likely need some variance, depending on what was proposed for the space. But, given that it's not a large lot and, I don't know what else necessarily would go here. As you noted, if it were housing, we would certainly need a variance. I guess maybe office buildings perhaps wouldn't. But again, I get, when I think about the opportunities for that lot, that's something that I'm considering. I saw your hand up, Sam. Did I?
Yes, well, 2 points. First of all, I want to mention that my wife actually taught a program called Cooperative Education, which was a in-school and work program. It was for students who weren't likely to go on to college, but it gave her students that first opportunity at a job, a reference for them to move on to another job. So I see this as kind of providing job opportunities to a certain segment of our population, in addition to the managers that were mentioned. Secondarily, I want to ask the question, has the planning board looked at this from the standpoint of the Davis Strait reset? When I look at it, we've already got a commercial strip, and this is like the one vacant lot in a row that starts down near Falmouth.
Oh, you're freezing. I think the feed is tough tonight. Everybody seems to be breaking up. I do believe that we had something in our packet from the planning board with a disfavorable recommendation towards this project. Is that correct? Noting that they didn't feel that it fit. Go ahead, Julian.
Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, it was from the town planner, Tom Bott. The planning board has not done any review on
Weighed
this.
in on it,
nor has
yeah.
the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you for correcting that. So from town planner, who was, again, echoing the Davis Strait reset, as it's been called, and saying that this sort of wasn't part of how that vision had been looked at. Who else? Nancy, you had your hand up?
I wanted to thank, and I can't see his name, Mr. El Sahara, for his answers. That's very helpful. But I just want to ask one more time, how many full-time does he expect here in Falmouth, and how many other slots in terms of employment? How many full-time people would he expect to hire?
An average restaurant in the middle of the winter have about 25 employees full-time.
Full-time, thank you.
Yeah, so in the summer it goes up by another maybe 10 more.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions for the applicant or for council?
Can I note, Madam?
Okay, do I have oh, yes, please.
That, that 25 full-time jobs, and they seem to include pretty good paying jobs. Seems like significant development. And that this is a large area that's proposed for this reset, which I think is still in the discussion stage. It hasn't gone to town meeting. It hasn't been rezoned as an overlay district. The proposed use is in fact allowed by the zoning, subject to a special permit. So we have to go to other town boards. And I think that Mr. Jones is right, that those issues should be dealt with by the Planning Board and the Board of Appeals. And we'll have to make our case before them. This is a very minor variance in terms of the actual gallons involved. And as I said, I don't think there can be much development on this site that is going to take place without a variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Doug Brown.
So
Doug Brown, go ahead, and then Doug Jones. Go ahead, Doug Brown.
Most of the letters that we receive from the public, including the president of the T-Ticket Civic Association, and we got quite a bit of correspondence, and they're almost all reminding us of the capacity limit, the planning aspect of it, and also the traffic and the, we don't even know yet that this housing development, how many cars it's gonna, how much gridlock we're gonna get on Spring Bars Road. And I know we're not supposed to be worrying about planning board issues, but I'm just mentioning these are the comments that we're receiving from the public, and they're pretty thoughtful comments. It's tough to ignore that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Doug Jones, you had your hand up?
My question is following up on Aman's comment about this is a minor variance. I guess I'm reading that it's looking for a variance of up to 1,000 gallons per day. And I guess I need to figure out exactly what that number means in comparison to either what was previously used as a by right under the car wash, or what effect that's going to have on our 80%. I mean, is that 1,000 comparing to our current capacity of I think around 100,000, or what's exactly is that 1,000 comparing to? And I'm not sure if Ms. Lowell's here.
Well, first of all,
I'm taking a
by
look.
right
Let me
is
just,
a 451 gallons.
just 1 second. Let's go ahead, Attorney Ahmet. I was looking to see if our wastewater superintendent was present. Go ahead.
So the variance request is not for the 1,000 in a sense. It's a total flow of 1,000, but almost half of that is what you'd be able to have by right, simply on the basis of the number of gallons per day per 10,000 square feet, one bedroom per 10,000 square feet, 110 gallons. In terms of so that's what's allowed by right. Compared to other uses, if you added 5 bedrooms to what's by right, you'd be in excess of the 1,000 gallons. What the wastewater treatment superintendent has advised you is that if all of the development that's been proposed in the area that's presently under consideration or already approved, some of which will never take place. But if all of that, then you'd get to the 80%. I believe she said in 2021. She also pointed out that efforts are underway to expand the capacity, to design for expansion, which I think has to be done. The sewer expansion to include the little pond area wasn't to prevent development, nor was it to allow development that couldn't occur except for the sewer. Clearly, the development we're proposing could occur without the sewer. And the health agent has basically said that. This is a business-owned piece of property at a location in the middle of dense business. So this isn't, in a sense, taking advantage of the town's sewer to be able to do some development that otherwise couldn't have occurred. It's not that at all. If the town doesn't want to have this kind of business in that location, they should rezone the property, but it hasn't been rezoned. If you have looked at the site plan, it looks like the site will work very well for the proposed use. Do we need to be concerned about traffic on Spring Bars Road and at the intersections of Worcester Court and Route 28, T-Ticket Highway? Yes, we do. And a traffic study will be commissioned before we would go to the planning board and the Board of Appeals. And that's the typical development issues, but a denial of even 1,000 gallons per day from this site, an increase of about 550 from what's allowed by right. That's basically saying little development or only a very narrow kind of development will be allowed on this site. And I don't think that was the intent of the flow neutral bylaw. It was to require, in particular, review of the capacity issue and what you could do if you were on, could be on Title V. And we have answers that are positive answers from Amy and from Scott on that. And the Board of Appeals also would be taking into account all of the issues, including they could take into account the sewer capacity, but they'll have to determine that the benefits of this project exceed any detriments that there may be. And both our planning board and the Board of Appeals, I think, are pretty thorough these days, and we'll have to make our case before them.
Thank you, Attorney Ahmed. Any other, I do want to read some comments that have come in through the chat. From Shirley Lombardozzi, there is a new house on Randolph, an additional proposed building project, a jigsaw puzzle sewer system now, and a proposed increase in a new mall, just what we need in this area. It just says Doris, location, the most dangerous intersection in, I think it was meant to say town. Forget about how much people are going to earn it. Sorry, sometimes I'm not sure if people write that all in. And then Ellie Costa was asking why we were not hearing from Usama, but we did. He answered, we heard the questions. I don't know if something's showing up on her computer differently, but we did hear from Mr. Sahrawi extensively. So I think he answered all the questions we had. Those are all the comments that have come in during this particular meeting. Doug Brown has noted the many emails and Doug Jones that we received, essentially not in support of this project for the reasons primarily around the issues of traffic, although some very much pertaining to concerns about our sewer system. We have something here from Kristen McCosh. I'm a quadriplegic summer resident of Randolph Street for 30 years. I'm very opposed to this. Okay, so do I have any further discussion? Yes, Sam.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. I understand the questions about how we budget the available sewer capacity, but I look at this as basically redevelopment of a commercial strip. And I'm having a rough time convincing myself that this isn't an appropriate use. And if it's not this business, then what business is going to go there? Because it's going to get used eventually. And if we discriminate against this particular purchaser and somebody else comes along, are we going to give it to them? So I think there's a fairness issue here. If this were in a residential area or something where they're looking for an exception to the zoning, I would be very resistant. But I don't think we should be too cavalier about resisting development in an area that was once a car wash and probably would have consumed at least 1,000 gallons. So we gave a permit for that car wash up on Davis Straits. And, I don't know, I'm having a rough time saying this is an inappropriate variance given the location. I have a problem with the traffic, but I think there are ways of handling the traffic issues, and the town needs to look at that. But that's apparently something that's going to be discussed later.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Cheryl is noting that the car wash wasn't there before we had the sewer, and she was asking what happened to the town using it for a parking lot. The owner, and Mr. Suso, you can correct me, but the owner of the property was not interested in entering into an agreement with the town, likely because of this potential development opportunity. So the town had pursued it, Mr. Suso had pursued it, and it wasn't something that we were able to enter into with the owner. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Suso.
I was just going to clarify further, Madam Chair, that the owner did not respond to the RFP, which would have put that in motion potentially. So that is the reason that further action was not taken in the parking area up to this point in time.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. Doug Brown.
So
go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry, I think everybody's feed is really delayed and difficult tonight. So sounds like there's about a 4-second delay before anyone's hearing me. Okay. So my apologies. I don't know what's going on. Go ahead, Doug.
So a lot of the issues that I've raised referred from the letters that we've received, a lot of them refer to the traffic. And I think the traffic is the biggest concern for me, although that's sort of outside of our purview here today, as Mr. Jones pointed out. So do we want to just narrowly focus on the amount of water that we're considering approving and sort of disregard the other stuff and let the other boards handle that? Or should we, take it all into consideration because we received this correspondence? I'm looking for a little guidance on that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is all of the comments that people share with us are going to color our thoughts on a project, but the specific criteria for the waiver is, outlined in the process that we have. And it doesn't include the parking and traffic because that is the purview of other boards. So I think folks sending that to us, obviously that's going to inform our thoughts on it. Can't help but have that impact. But this board won't make any findings about those particular issues when we make a decision about this project. We will make findings about the criteria that are in our waiver. So around those considerations, economic development, affordable housing, mixed-use development in a business redevelopment zone. So those will be the issues that we find, make findings on, but certainly each individual member of the board is going to use whatever information they have in front of them to make their decision. Doug Jones?
I think I have enough information to go ahead and move that we close the hearing.
Okay, I have a motion to close the hearing. Do I have a second?
Patterson, second.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion about closing the hearing, by roll call to close the hearing, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
And Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Okay. I will say right under the wire when we were voting, we did have one other comment from Carol O'Brien, postpone the vote until a peer review regarding sewer effluent is required and completed. No decision can be made until the very least there is, until at the very least we have that, was her comment. Okay, what is the pleasure of this board? Maybe if we start with particular findings.
I was going to start off by saying that I think that last comment is a pretty good suggestion, and I hate to ask Amy Lowell to come to each one of these meetings every time we want to talk about one of these things, but it does seem sort of appropriate.
Any other thoughts from the board? Julian, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair and the members of the board, if you'd like, I can reach out to Amy and see whether she can join us. I don't know if she's available or not.
I think Peter already tried that.
Yeah,
I think she's not available tonight. I think Peter sent a comment indicating that she wasn't available for tonight. So I guess one of the questions is, does the board feel that you want to hear further from her? Go ahead, Doug Jones.
So it's going to be the health board to determine what actually kind of traps need to be put onto this business. All we're talking about is the number of gallons. The Board of
Right.
Health makes sure that the gallons actually are treated appropriately and the sewer system can handle them. The only thing we actually deal with is the number of gallons. And so we've already heard from Amy that the treatment plant can take the new gallons. We've heard from Board of Health that they could put a Title V system there. So I would add those as the two findings we could put in right now.
Okay. Any other findings from the board?
Well, we're finding that it's maybe it's marginally in economically development. Economical development. Maybe that fits a little bit because these people do have a pretty good package for their employees, even though it's not a professional, high-paying job. Pretty good benefits. And that was a little bit surprising to me.
So maybe if we were very specific with the findings, that the findings are there are approximately 25 year-round full-time employees that begin their earnings at $14 an hour and have access to benefits. Sam?
I think we should find that it is in the appropriate B2 zoning.
Okay. Just if we go back, I know we're jumping around, Peter, you're probably keeping track of these. So also along the economic piece that the managers or upper sort of management earns, I think we heard 45, my notes say $45,000 to $70,000 and also have access to full benefits, including 401k and health insurance.
Same benefit package as offered to all the employees.
And that
go up.
That the yes, thank you. That we would have a higher assessment for the property as well as
meals tax.
Meals tax. Thank you. Any other findings? If we look at the criteria, obviously it doesn't impact. It doesn't address affordable housing needs, and it isn't a mixed-use development. Perhaps one of the findings could be that this particular project, as proposed, is not suited for mixed use, given that the lot is only 40,000 square feet and can't accommodate residential parking along with the needs and parking for the business. And it is not a municipal use. That's one of our last. Okay, so with those findings, anything else important? Okay, so with those findings, do I have any particular motion from anyone on the board? Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I move that we approve the variance for this particular parcel.
Okay, do I have a second?
Jones will second, and I'm looking forward to hearing the other board's reaction to this.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, no.
Brown?
I'm gonna have to vote no on this one for now. I'd be willing to reconsider it, but not at this moment.
Okay, Jones?
Jones, aye.
And Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Okay, and can someone just remind me, is just a simple majority appropriate for this waiver? I believe that it is, but
that's my memory too, Madam Chair. Simple majority.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, moving back to our agenda, we have under special events, Ride for Homes, Habitat for Humanity of Cape Cod, Born to Woods Hole to Born, entirely on bike path in Falmouth, Sunday, 9/13/2020, 7 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Do we have the applicant present? Okay, it looks like Ginny Irving. Adrian had to leave, but she is here, so maybe, great. Looks like we're promoting Ginny now.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you
How
for
are you?
thank you for letting us resubmit for the permit. I know we did send in the paperwork and just wanted to kind of quickly say that for this particular event, we currently have 27 riders that are signed up to do the 40-mile route, which is from the Aptuxet trading post in Bourne, and then it goes all the way down to the steamship terminal down in Woods Hole, and then they ride back. So the only time that we're, in Falmouth is along the bike path the entire way from North Falmouth to Woods Hole and back. So we're not, we don't have spectators, we don't have anybody else out there. It'll just be the 27 riders. And even with those 27, we will be staggering the start time with them. So we'll probably send out about 5 or so every 10 minutes. Again, just to keep everybody staggered. I'm just looking at my notes here.
Don't worry, we all have to do that, believe me.
Exactly. So we've been in great conversation with the town of Bourne and everyone involved, because that's where we start and end, and they're fully on board with us continuing to move forward with the event. The 40-mile route, which is the one that goes through Falmouth, we'll be starting them at 7:30, and we expect all the riders to be off the bike path by 9:30 that morning. So really, it's just like a 2-hour window that people would be on the bike path. When we're strongly encouraging everyone to be wearing face masks while they're on our site in Bourne. Kind of up to them on the bike route itself, but we are giving out masks when people arrive, so they will have them. No spectators, I already said. We're keeping with the 50 people limit as the governor has requested for events. I think we're expecting maybe 20 people are doing the 12-mile ride, which doesn't affect Falmouth. That's just on the canal route itself. So I think that, and unless you have questions for me, I think I'm just reiterating what I submitted.
Okay, great. Thank you. Doug Jones.
One question and one comment. On our application, it says 20 people. I'm a little concerned now it's 27. It's now going to get up to 35. You really shouldn't be changing the numbers on us like that. And the second is the bike path right now, and I'm sure in September, is extremely busy. And I just don't see it as the right time to be doing this. Already we're having people not abiding by our request for masks on the bike path. We certainly need to get some more hedge trimming done, but because it's really narrow. And so I just don't think this is the right time for us to be doing this.
Nancy?
Did I hear you say, Ms. Irving, that masks were optional on the bike path? I don't know if I heard you correctly.
I said that, but if Falmouth now has the rule that you have to wear a mask, then we will notify our participants that that is the rule.
There is signage on the bike path that they need to be wearing masks.
Okay, we were not aware of that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Can I just?
Sure, go ahead. Yep, and then Doug Brown, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to answer Doug Jones's comment about we weren't trying to be sneaky when we submitted our paperwork. I think this was 2 weeks ago. We were only at 20 riders. Registration is currently open, and so that's why we allowed it to go to 27. But we're maximizing the event at 50 riders, and there's no way, this is only our 3rd year. The majority of people who sign up this late, no one's joining at the 40-mile route. If anyone in the next 2 weeks joins, it's usually just the 12-mile route people. And we're happy if it makes it easier for you in making a decision to move forward to cap it at 30 people participating. And like I said, they'd just be going out in 5 people at a time every 10 minutes or so.
I guess if you're going to have an application for 20, you should cap it at 20. You shouldn't allow more people to sign up.
Okay, and Doug Brown?
I was just going to say that as far as the bike path go, didn't Ms. Irving say that it was going to be only a small percentage of the people on the bike path? Is that correct? Did I understand that right?
Well, what she's saying is up to potentially 30 is what she's asking for this particular part, which is the 40-mile part of it.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That is a lot of people on the bike path.
Sam?
The one thing that impressed me, though, is fairly early in the morning before the bike path gets really busy. I know there are a lot of people that ride it all the time during daylight hours, but at least the use of it will be not at the peak time when you're expecting a lot of families to be out there. And if it's finishing at 9:30, that means that those 20 to 30 people will already have left.
Okay, that's a good point.
And we purposely did that. Like normally this ride starts around 9 a.m. and in order to make it, you know, accommodate so that we'd get off sooner. That's why we started the race earlier. Well, it's not really a race, the ride at 7:30 in the morning to be off the main route for so that we wouldn't be interfering with the general public's use.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, any particular motion from the board?
I would move approval. I think that they are understanding of the importance of the distancing and they have a plan that seems to be pretty good. I'm a little surprised you didn't know about the mass on the bikeway, but.
With the 30 person cap or the 20, where are you? I think you said you have 27 now, Jenny?
I'd be willing to go to 30. I think it's a fair request. I don't know how you guys feel.
So they'd be going out in 6 groups of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that math, Doug Jones?
I would also.
That's masterful.
I would also
ahead,
support. I would also support the 30. However, I do want to make note of Doug Jones's comment that when you file an application and you put 20, I think it gets kind of sticky. But I certainly would support 30. And however, I would just hope that Ms. Irving, you would make masks mandatory.
Sure.
Yep. Thank you.
We can easily do that because we're doing like we'll do, you know, a logistics email the week of letting people know all the things they need to do, including the self-certification survey for their COVID symptoms. And again, there was no malintent made when we submitted this 2 weeks ago that we had currently 20 people registered. So it just, as of this morning, we were at 27 and we're happy to, you know, do what makes you all happy.
So I will second Doug Brown's motion.
Okay. Yep.
That's conditioned?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam.
Great. Okay. Any further discussion? I have a motion and a second. Okay. By roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, no.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here to answer the questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Good luck. Raise lots of money for Habitat for Humanity. It's a good cause.
Thank you.
Great. Next we have, this is the night of bicycle events. Next we have Pedal to Parcels, the 300 Committee Land Trust, Tony Andrews Farm, start, finish, guided bicycle tour of conservation land, Sunday, 9:20, 9 a.m. To 12 p.m.
I think we got a last minute cancellation on that.
That was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see that email. Okay, thank you. All right, next we have the Kerwin Murray Tour to Falmouth, Falmouth Housing Corporation, Surf Drive Beach, start, finish, Sunday, 10/11/2020, 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And I believe Matt Patrick is here to answer any questions. And Zelda McGregor. Welcome.
Hi, Zelda.
Oh, wait, Matt is.
Okay.
There we go. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Good. Thanks, everybody. Good to see everybody working so hard.
Oh, thank you. So we got the application with, I think, some pretty thorough explanations of how you plan to run the event. What I would do is just, the board has read through it. Does the board have Any questions about how they plan to operate this event? Doug Brown, go ahead.
So with two groups of 40, does that really mean the 40 is going to be in one group, like a pack? It seems kind of tight.
Doug, they're spread out all over the place. It will be a very dispersed group. It's not like a race where they're trying to get ahead of each other. And you have a lot of different riders with different riding abilities in both groups. So they will not be all in a big group riding at once. So they will be spread out over the entire route.
So when you say two groups of 40, it's really just because you really want to get separation between the two groups to allow more spacing. Is that the idea?
Well, we want to limit it to under 50 people in each group. And the 40 riders plus 10 staff people will keep it at an hour and a half apart. That will keep it at under 50 or around 50.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I saw you have masks. Zelda, I think you're putting one on. So everyone will get an individual mask that's great, that has the logo for the ride and their individual. I'm just reading from some further adaptations and precautions that the masks are individually packaged and that there isn't going to be sort of the communal eating that you've had at some of your other events.
Right.
And there is no post-ride gathering, which I know was, a fun part of it, but that's been canceled. So really it's the area of Surf Drive Beach is the time in the event where people will be congregated, but they'll be socially distancing in that space. Is that how you envision it?
Yes, they'll be socially distancing, wearing masks, and again, two groups of 40 separated by an hour and a half.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And I see that you have hand sanitizer will be available and some other precautions. Any questions from the board about that? Yes, Doug Brown.
And I don't think your route involves the bike path. Am I correct about that?
Right. We avoid the bike path.
Right. Okay, thanks.
And we will have a police escort for the riders.
Great. And you set up the porta potties and all of that?
Well, actually, the beach committee has been good enough to let us use the facilities there. If people need to stop along the way, they have to catch as catch can as.
Okay.
But
Excellent.
No, we don't provide any porta potties anymore.
Okay. And I just am reading that over the past 3 years that the Tour de Falmouth has raised $115,000 for project really addressing keeping people in their homes, the Falmouth Homeless Prevention Program.
Right, and as you folks probably realize that it's much more cost effective to keep a family in their home than it is to let them go homeless and then try to find a new place for them. So this fund has been really a stopgap for a lot of families in town. We've helped, you name it. People, they have trouble with their car breaks down and they can't make a mortgage payment. Some people have that much difficulty from month to month. And as you can see going forward with this COVID problem, it's not going to get any better. In fact, it's going to get pretty desperate for a lot of folks. So we hope to keep this well funded going forward and be able to help as many people in Falmouth as we can.
Great, thank you. Yep, Doug Brown.
So Matt, is your effort here in addition to the work of belonging to each other, or do you guys collaborate?
No, this is all through for Falmouth Housing Corporation, they administer the, they take the applications for the money, and they determine if people are a good risk. And I might add, a lot of these folks pay it back when they have a chance.
Yeah. I'm
And
glad
let
to
me
hear
just,
there's more than one effort going. Thank you.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, but did this event take the place of the walk that Bob Murray had for many years, as a fundraising event as well?
Yes, it did, exactly. It the Bob Murray event, he walked from P-Town to Falmouth, and we had trouble trying to reestablish that. So that's when Linda Clark heard about what I was trying to do, and we got together and talked it over, and thought that it might be a good way to do an event right here in town.
Great,
So.
thank you. And I just want to thank Matt and Zelda, and I think Zelda put it together because I know she had some comments at our last meeting, but it is a very thorough, your response, I think, is a good template for how I hope other folks sort of address the issue of trying to come back before us. It really did have more details than some of the reapplications that we've received. So I hope, I really encourage, if other events are going to try and come back before us, take a look at, it's available in the packet, but take a look at how it's very, structured to address a lot of the concerns so that we have that information. So are there any further questions from the board? If not, do I have a motion?
Move.
Patterson,
Okay,
second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Great, thank you both very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt and Zelda.
There.
Thanks.
Great work.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Next, we have a new application and proposal, Where Are the Wings? Wings for Falmouth Families, townwide scavenger hunt, Saturday, 9/26/20, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. All right, we have Mr. Roulette. And Ms. Thrasher, welcome. That was an adorable picture, Nancy. I saw your little picture. That was cute. Oh, there you are. You just have to unmute yourself.
Yes.
There you
so
go.
The little boy driving that car has an actual car now.
Yeah, it happens quickly. Welcome to both of you. If you want to, we did receive the application. Why don't I just start by asking the board, I'm just going to dive in given the hour. Let me just ask the board, do you have any particular questions about this event that we can hear more details from the ladies about? Doug Jones, you're good? Okay. Any other questions or any questions? Okay. Why
Don't you ladies want to tell us something about the
Yeah,
event?
yes, I'm going to ask them to give a quick promo of what it is, and then we'll have a vote.
Sure. Usually we have a summer carnival for kids. It's kind of a family event. And then we have a more grown-up fundraiser event at the end of the year. And that's obviously, both of those have been canceled. So we thought this would be a smaller fundraiser that could still involve families. It's really to raise awareness for Wings, because even though we've been around for 15 years, a lot of people just aren't aware of what we do and how we can help. So this is going to be an event that we hope we can manage safely, and we think we have all the protocols in place. Everyone's going to be given a list of rules that they have to follow when they register. We're going to cap the numbers, and then we're going to see how well they know Falmouth.
Great. And can I ask, was the issue, we had an email from Joe Olenek about the fields. Was that addressed? I couldn't tell in the email.
we were gonna start and end at the ball field.
Yes.
And then he said that they'd have youth soccer there, so we offered the rec center as a start and end, and that's where we're going to be. So
perfect.
Now everybody knows where the final clue is.
Okay. Well, hopefully none of
we just gave away one location.
That's all right. They'll forget by the time it rolls around. But And where do they go if people are interested in it? Where do they go to find out more information?
It's going
or
to be on the
register?
website. It's wingsforfalmouthfamilies.org. And we are going to start promoting it as soon as, if we're approved, we'd like to start sending it out on our website and Facebook page and all the social media sites.
Great, excellent. Okay, I have a motion to approve.
Patterson, second.
I have a second, and a motion a second. Further discussion. Seeing none, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown eye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Great, thank you, ladies. Appreciate it. Good luck with the event.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are under our regular business and we have discussion update on COVID-19 issues. Do we have our health agent, Scott McGann, here tonight?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Scott. Welcome. What do we need to know?
Well, we remain at 241 cases. We've had only 4 cases for the month of August, which is a good sign. You know, we were maybe struggling a little bit with the nursing home and the lifeguard, you know, late July. But we're averaging, I think we had 1 case over the past week. So, I mean, that's a wonderful number to have. So that's where we are as far as the cases go.
Great.
That's true of the entire Cape. The entire Cape's averaging less than 10 a week, it looks like, looking at the Cape's data. So we're sort of doing the same as the Cape is with our numbers right now. In terms of Falmouth, weekly, there's a weekly dashboard. You guys know the daily dashboard, and then there's a weekly one on Wednesday. They have a new chart that shows red for high infection, yellow for moderate, low in green, and almost non-existent in white, or less than 5 cases total in 14 days. And right now we're currently in green, and if we have another good week I think maybe even by Wednesday, we might be white because we've been pretty good on the caseload. And that chart's going to be used when the school reopening process happens, and they're using that as one of the metrics to use for the schools. And so like I said, we're currently in green. We'll see what happens. Oh, good. Get the chart up there. Thanks.
Great.
And so, you can see there's been a handful of towns that are in the red. The thing about this is going to depend on, this goes by cases, and you have to kind of know what cases are. Sometimes you might jump into yellow. If we had something similar that happened at, let's say, the Royal, you could jump through yellow, but that's not a lot of community spread. That's an isolated sort of congregate living, So if you lived in Walpole, for example, you have the Walpole prison. Well, that could change the numbers really quick if they're counting those numbers towards that location. So you have to take each, on a case by case, no pun intended, on this. But that's the chart that comes out every week, and the state's been updated. It's going to start updating that usually by 6 o'clock on Wednesdays. As far as we're averaging in this town between around 650 to 700 tests per week.
Wow.
Yeah. Our positivity percent is 0.5, so 5 in 1,000 are coming back on average positive. So in terms of our metrics, our testing is higher than our surrounding communities, and our percent positive is on the low end. So we're doing well for what we want. You want a lot of tests, you want a lot of negative tests, right? So that's kind of where we're at on that. And as far as what the health department's doing now, we're starting to really work a lot with the schools and superintendent to make sure in getting the VNA we're trying to work to get the VNA and the nurses all together so they can contact directly and go back and forth because, school's around the corner. And so we've been working a lot with that. And so that's sort of my recap. I mean, I could probably best let you guys ask as many questions as you like. So.
Okay. Thank you. Sam, go ahead.
Since the reporting really is people who declare their residence in Falmouth, are those few cases actually located in Falmouth, or could these be people that have traveled somewhere else and get reported to us?
Yeah, that's a couple of those have been that, Sam, sure.
Okay.
So some of them are obtained the infection elsewhere, right? Obtained the disease elsewhere, yes. And as far as I've gotten a lot of questions about what the case number means, and what the case number means is those are Falmouth residents. So in the summertime, we have a lot of people here. So we're probably exporting cases that may occur here, and the number counts elsewhere. The reverse is also true. So in April, when the snowbirds come up from Florida, right, this past April, there were cases that the person obtained the infection in Florida counted as a Falmouth number. So it sort of comes out in the wash. You have a college-age kid this winter, it might probably want to use the Falmouth residence as the Falmouth address, it would count as a Falmouth case. And that sort of, I guess, comes out in the wash a bit.
Yep. Great, thank you. Doug Brown, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I understand that we've been keeping track that way since the beginning. It never really made sense to me. I'm wondering if now that we're getting into this more of a groove, are they going to start tracking local actual? Is the tracking going to be changed at all or enhanced with maybe dual tracking?
Well, let me phrase. You can always share a case, so cases could get easily. So if somebody lived in Easton, had a summer residence here, the Board of Health in Easton could share the case with the VNA here. So that would normally is how that should happen, is it's shared. The idea is it doesn't really matter who's doing the contact tracing as long as the contact tracing is being done.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the main goal. But I know it does mean something in our metrics if we're going to open schools or do things based on what our numbers are. It does.
Right.
I get that. The cases could easily be shared. I think, the sort of, I can almost count as many cases. I don't know exactly how many cases were exported, so it's hard for me to tell. I can tell you there was a lot of these 241 cases that were obtained elsewhere, especially over the last couple of months. Okay, that's been the norm. Obviously, if we get these counts of less than 10 a week, Cape-wide, that most of it are going to be from flying or travel or something like that, where that cases are going to be brought in. That's just sort of the.
So the numbers look really good for us, but we're just counting our own residents. We're not counting the people that come and go. Is there any way to get any idea of what type of level that number might be at? Do we have any kind of tracking for that? I'm just curious of what's really out there rather than just the numbers that we're seeing.
No, you're not going to know how many people from, let's say, New Jersey came here, got it here and came back. You would have, insularly, you'd know because there would be some spread within the community because it wouldn't just be, if there was an event here, I don't know what the event is, whatever it happens to be, a party or some sort. And it was residents from other locations, they would probably tend to pick up some Falmouth residents as well. Right? So I would probably tend to see that somehow, but it's impossible to know exactly how many were exported or imported. I'll only know imported cases that happen elsewhere. I would know, right? Because they're going to come into me as a Falmouth resident, even though they might not have been in Falmouth for the last year and a half. I've seen that. But the other way around, it's really hard to tell unless a real good contact trace was done elsewhere and shared the case, which we've had cases shared from other municipalities.
But it's not the norm.
I think as the counts are better, it happens. We do a better job when you get, at the beginning of this, when you're doing contact tracing on 90 people in each town every week, the contact tracing isn't detailed as you would want it. As the caseload becomes manageable like it is now, the contact tracing gets more detailed. Mm-hmm. And plus, at the beginning, we didn't have the CTC at the state level to help, share and so forth. So when cases are multiple from different jurisdictions, usually we'll use different states. Yeah, we'll use the CTC. That's the perfect way to use the CTC. Instead of having the VNA and myself try to call somebody out in California, use the state. If it involves travel, the state knows what airline to get a hold of, right? And we can track that flight. So that's what we use in Falmouth we use the CTC for those interjurisdictional cases.
Okay.
So the number is relative. Yes, there's always could be a couple here and a couple there that are off from the actual number. You also have asymptomatic and the whole other thing. And it's a metric that tells you that you're doing relatively good or relatively good.
Doug Jones?
So Scott, right now you would say that we probably have 5 or 6 active positive cases that we've recorded. And the number of cases, because of the ones who have recovered, that we had 241, and I think it was saying about 98%.
I would say active infections that are not really. The nursing home hasn't technically been cleared out yet, so that number might be. But non-nursing home, there's 2.
And then there are going to be
that are not in isolation.
But those are the ones we know about that are Falmouth residents.
Well, that's all we're going to know. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Scott? I mean, just to sort of, just for the public's, understanding, obviously it's an imperfect system, as you've noted, because it's, you can't track every single person, particularly when we have people coming and going. But from your perspective, the way, what we're seeing right now with that high number of people testing and still that fairly low positive, I mean, is your feeling still confident that at this moment, we're in a good place? All of those other, things being considered, that we're not capturing, there's no system that's ever going to capture 100% of the people who are infected.
Right. So out of every 1,000 tests that we give, we average about 5 positive. And, and a lot of times some of these tests are extremely sensitive and try to err on the false positive. So you might actually be slightly lower because you don't want a test that does the opposite. That's bad, awful. You don't want false negative. So
and I know you and I saw some emails about that.
Yeah, so right. And so you tend to have more false positives. So even if let's say the state had 227 cases, there's probably some percentage of those that are false positives. I don't know exactly that rate, but so yeah, we do get the false positives too. So it's as low as it's a real low hum at this point in time, right?
Great. Any other questions for Scott? Sam, did you have one?
No, just a comment. I think it really says that our public has been doing a great job, but it's not time to take your mask off, because we want those kids back in school socializing as much as possible. We certainly don't want to inject an infection into a school community. So it's really important for the public to recognize we've been doing the right things, it's working, and we need to keep diligent in our practices.
Yeah, and just to remind folks, I mean, I just, as a parent of a teenager, adults need reminding all the time, to just practice all the social distancing and the good, precautionary behavior with masks and hand washing. As our children go back into school, I think it's just really important to continue to remind them. It's, something that I think that, they've heard for months now, and everybody can sometimes get a little bit lax or just sort of tired of, feeling like we're always at that critical level. But being able to have the students be in school in the various ways that the school department has worked really hard to put together is going to be so important for parents and for our community and for our economy, never mind for public health, which of course is first and foremost. But not having our children in school is just such a challenge for so many families. And we really do hold a lot of the key to that success if we continue to remind our children, remind ourselves to keep practicing everything that we hear Scott tell us every single week, pretty basic stuff. Wash your hands, wear a mask, distance. It's not that hard to do, but I do think we're getting to that as we enter that school year, we are getting to a point where we need to kind of refresh that messaging and stay on top of it. So,
yeah. And one thing that, anecdotally, even if there happens to be a case next to you and you're indoors, if you're wearing the mask and the social distance and your initial viral load is low, you're going to be better off than if your initial viral load is really high. Does that make sense to everybody? So the mask, and even if it is spreading, and since we have gotten really good with masking and social distancing, the cases and the resolution of the cases seem to be less severe in the last 3 months than they were in the first 3 months, for whatever reason. And maybe and I think it's got a lot to do with the viral load that you start off with in your body from day one. Now, I'm not Dr. Fauci, and I'm not going to sit there, I know that, but I can just tell you what I see when I see the cases come through. And there has been, some of it's younger kids later on have been getting it more so than the elderly and so forth. But I think with a good, as we get a hold of the social distancing, the mask wearing, that it's been effective, even if there is a transfer from that. And that's just sort of my opinion on that part.
Thank you, Scott. Anything else from Scott? Yep, Julian.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. While we were speaking about it, I just wanted to, as a reminder, the board recalls that you had passed the mandatory mask awareness initiative for downtown and portions of Woods Hole. And as the board's aware, Public Works, and I thank Peter McConerty and his colleagues in Public Works for their great help in getting the signage posted timely in time for some up there in both areas for the first weekend, and this past second weekend, considerably more signs posted. It did appear that a few of them were disappearing. I don't know if they were disappearing as souvenirs to some individuals or for other reasons, but Peter and his colleagues in Public Works have been excellent in replacing those, filling in gaps, and just in general, I think our overall, in speaking with several of my colleagues, our overall impression is that the incidence of mask use has increased, and that we have very good compliance, particularly in those two more densely populated areas, and certainly welcome any comments Scott might have. And I think Chief Dunn may also be joining us shortly, and if he's not here already, could comment on that as well.
Thank you, Julian. Any further comment on that, Scott?
I mean, I'd have to say our complaints have gone down in the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's because our population might be down a little bit, but the quantity of complaints have gone down a little bit. I've noticed anecdotally that the mask wearing on Main Street in Woods Hole has been better. I think businesses have done a much better job as time progresses. We're not having to go back to the same businesses over and over, and we've been working with them. We do go to businesses when we get calls. So if anybody's watching and says, I've left a message and no one called me back at the health department, doesn't mean we didn't go out there. So we do get out there to just about every complaint. And so, I think things are, at least people have figured it out better, at least over the last couple of months, because I can only go by the quantity of complaints that I get, and it has been lower over the last couple.
One thing, Scott, I'm recalling that I did receive a couple of emails from folks who, I'll pass them on to you individually, but, just that there were concerns that there are some restaurants that are, and these were from some other restaurant owners who were just saying, they felt that there were a few restaurants that were really not complying, mostly in terms of having individuals kind of congregating near bar areas, and also having kind of indoor music events that aren't, where there's not space to distance in the way, whereas obviously the musicians are not masked and there are patrons, fairly close to where the music is being played. So, I'll pass those on to you, but just a reminder to businesses that, the compliance is so that we can keep good numbers, the type of numbers that Scott's talking about, so that hopefully we don't have to continue to for an even longer period of time than is necessary to have all the restrictions that I know are impacting businesses. So while it, may be a short-term boon to, loosen up, in the long term, it's really has the potential to impact, what we're able to do here in town and how businesses are able to run long-term. So I hope folks, take it seriously and that they're putting some of those licensing, those licenses at risk. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, and part of that is you don't know, there's a delay to it because it's got a long incubation period. So sometimes what ends up happening, there might only been a few people. By the time we start getting the cases in, it's into day 10, and it's it's bigger. It's a bigger animal than that. So yeah.
Thanks. I'll send those concerns to you. Sam.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that singing is one of the ways that you create a lot of aerosols because you're projecting. And that's, if you happen to be COVID positive, you're going to be spreading it. So that distancing is going to become extremely critical under those circumstances.
And if you're a business of any type, or even these the events that you guys just heard, the guidance needs to be, the guidance get updated very frequently. I'm deleting guidance and adding new guidance every day. So, so go to the newest guidance, and if you got questions, you call us and we can walk through it. And that's kind of what we spend a good chunk of our day doing, with different entities out there. So if you're a business owner, check the guidance, make sure you're up to date with the guidance. If not, then, we can help you with it.
Great. Thank you. Anything else for Scott? Great. Thank you, Scott, so much. Really appreciate it.
See you.
So much earlier than usual. So
I'm liking it. I got I got school committee tomorrow night, so
we'll fill up your week. Don't worry. Thank you. Take care. All right. Next, we're going to have an update on something that we've talked about previously, which is discussion of civil service and the fact, mostly in regards to the police department. I see Chief Dunn is coming on. Julian, did you just want to address this issue and kind of set the stage for what your thoughts are? And good evening, Chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Chief. The board may recall we've been in the midst of a Civil Service Assessment Center promotional process for a police captain. And of course, because it's governed by civil service, we do need to follow all the rules of civil service accordingly. And our initial experience was that unfortunately, we had what's deemed a short list under civil service, and we had to open and expand the ranks for additional applications and testing under the Civil Service Assessment Center process. And I just want to confirm that as the chief and I have discussed, unfortunately, even with the expanded rank, expanding it from lieutenants to sergeants, we ended up with a insufficient number of applications. So we're having to go back to civil service once again and expand the ranks further. Now, this would be the last expansion that we can do, but that is our only option under civil service rules, which is one of the requirements when you're a civil service community. We've got to follow the rules, and I know Chief Dunn can comment on that. One other comment as well that the chief and I also, Madam Chair, members of the board, want to talk for a few moments about town meeting, spring town meeting Article 27, which is the potential removal from the civil service process and the vexing problems that we have had. The chief and I are well familiar with those, working together on them closely. It's presented many obstacles to being able to move forward in an efficient manner with hiring qualified police professionals. But also in the case of these promotional tests, it's been an obstacle to timely filling police promotional positions when they appear and are vacant. Absent civil service, Chief and I are confident that promotional process would have been completed and we'd have a police captain already appointed and on duty. So, Chief, if I might pass things to you at this point.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, this process started, if you remember, back in January when Captain Smith retired, and we do a sole assessment. We don't do a written exam for captain. We do a sole assessment. Go for 3 bids. We got the 3 bids. We selected a company, and then COVID hit. So civil service pretty much shut down on us. And so it kind of really delayed. Back in April 28th and 29th, both days. One day was an assessment for lieutenants, where we had 5 sergeants sign up for that, and 5 sergeants participated. And then on the 29th, we had the captain's assessment. On that one, 4 lieutenants had signed up, and only 2 showed up for the exam, which, to start with, made it a short exam. When the assessments were over, we knew the raw scores. We don't know the final scores. The raw scores of how they did in the assessment, the scores then go to civil service for their veterans preference, education, years of service, and all that. When the exam was submitted to the town, there was only 1 name on there. And we know both candidates passed. And we asked civil service the question, what happened to the second name? And the answer we got from our representative was, I don't know. So that made the list even shorter. And under civil service law, the town manager, who is the appointing authority, has the right to select from the top 3 candidates. So that being said, it was a short list. We contacted civil service and asked for a new date for another assessment. And when you have a short list, as Mr. Suso said, it has to go to the next rank. When the 4 lieutenants signed up for that, it prevented any other rank from taking that exam, because 4 is the number that you need to have. So the sergeants weren't eligible to take the captain's exam. So the lieutenants and sergeants could sign up for the captain's assessment. That was posted, and we planned on having that assessment. I believe the date was September 9th, and that was on the posting. Civil Service notified us on August 18th that we only had 3 people apply for the assessment, and they were going to postpone it and open it to the next rank, which is patrol. So currently right now, the and I'll read this article. It's Mass General Law 3159. If less than 4 applications are received from the eligible candidate list, this examination will be postponed and will be open to the next lower rank. So we have no choice and have to do that. So right now, the exam has been reposted on August 20th, and the new posting lists the eligible titles as sergeant, lieutenant, and patrol officer. And that exam will take place on October 7th now. If nobody else signs up for this, Civil Service will allow us to have the exam with the 3 because there's no other ranks to go to. So there's just another obstacle that we're jumping through hoops with Civil Service. And we even asked them, because the 3 candidates that signed up, in reality, we will have 4 candidates to choose from, because the lieutenant that came down on the list, the short list, it doesn't go away. They will merge those 2 tests together. So there would be 4 people on that if the 3 passed. But it's just another obstacle with Civil Service, as frustrating as it is.
Thank you. And just to go back to what Julian was talking about, sort of in a little bit more of a timely piece, we do have the article that's hanging over from spring town meeting. And I know you and I have had some discussion, and Julian as well, about the fact that we know we're not going to really necessarily be in a position to have a 2 nights, of long debate. This is going to be a subject on which there'll be a lot of debate, as there should be. And we would want to hear from all officers, past, present, anyone who wants to speak on it. And this may not be the best time for that article to go forward, given the fact that it's not going to be a great setting for public debate, in September.
I would agree with you. And we're also continuing, and if you were to postpone that would allow us to continue to have good conversations with the 3 different unions that we are in current negotiations with a couple of them, and that would allow us to continue those negotiations with them.
Thanks,
as frustrated as we are.
So my comment, first, my question through you, Madam Chair, to Chief Dunn was, where are you in terms of negotiations? And I think that you answered that you're in the process with a few unions. So it seems to me like the smart thing to do would be to not push that at this point. It just feels like perhaps going, to be out of civil service in the long run might be a good idea, but the timing feels a little off to me right now, given where you are with negotiations. It just doesn't feel like the right time. So I'd want to postpone that.
Thank you. Agreed. Doug Jones and then Sam.
I'll second her motion to indefinitely postpone that article.
We actually can't make that motion tonight. We'd have to do it at our preliminary meeting before town meeting on the next town meeting itself, right?
Yes, I think so. I think that would be the process, but just so that we're having a feel for where, that's why we want to have the discussion in advance. Yeah. I think the other piece, Nancy, taking into account sort of those ongoing conversations with the unions, we want robust debate on every article. Even though it keeps us there sometime, that's the whole point of our system of town meeting, that anyone can come and really have that debate. This particular world that we're in right now with COVID and having, a meeting where we're trying to limit the amount of time people are in closer proximity to each other doesn't really encourage that robust debate, or it may require some folks who would want to participate. They may not feel comfortable for health reasons doing so. So we really, I think we want to make sure, particularly an issue like this, we know there's a lot of interest, that we do it at a time that's conducive to encouraging the discussion and debate. And unfortunately, you know, September 14th, which is just around the corner, is probably not that date. But
I agree. I think it would be short-sighted at this point.
Sam?
Yeah, can I ask for semantic clarification? I think we should be using the word deliberation. Debate suggests a competition. And I would rather us think of this as trying to look at all the possible details. And yes, I agree with you. It's not the right time. We want a robust deliberation of this particular article and issue. But let's not call it a debate, because to me, it motivates competition. And I don't want to see that in our town meeting activities.
Okay. Any other, Sam, Doug Brown?
I was also curious of, have you come up with any kind of model yet of what will replace the civil service? You know, how the promotions will be managed and the other things that are involved with civil service that will need to be replaced?
Those are the talks that we've had with the different unions. This is not something that we're going to have to reinvent, Doug. There are many communities that are non-civil service that their hiring process and their promotional process is out there. So there's a lot of good data out there, and those are the conversations that we've been having through the negotiations.
Great, thanks.
Great. Any other questions for the chief or Julian on this issue? Okay, and we'll just make sure that obviously our agenda for town meeting includes our vote on this particular article. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All right, next we have request for sign variance for off-premise promotional sign at 319 Courier Road, Falmouth. Kevin Pacheco, Vivid Event Productions, drive-in movies at Cape Cod Fairgrounds. Welcome. Just need to unmute yourself.
There we are.
There you go. Great, welcome. So we have in our packet, the board has seen the sort of what the promotional sign would look like and the proposed placement of that sign. Do folks have questions about this? Looks like everyone's turning to their pages in their packet. So hold on, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any questions from the board? Yes, Doug.
Did we get a resolution about the musicians to this combination with the drive-in?
Because it's not on our agenda, we are likely going to have a meeting on Thursday, a very brief meeting to address the upcoming scheduled event that's for this weekend, as well as the permit long-term. But it's not on our agenda for this evening. So the short answer is no, we don't have a resolution, although they did comply with our request not to have the musicians at their last weekend when they were planning on it. And we are going to have, I think an email went out from Diane today. Julian, is that correct?
I transmitted the email to the board myself, so yes, it did.
Okay, so we're looking to have a meeting on Thursday to address the music component of it. Okay, so check your email if you didn't get to see that.
And have they been able to make sure this sign actually fits within the code?
Kevin, do you know about the sign? Have you been able to see the? Okay, go ahead.
Yep. Speaking with Mr. Dickinson, Jonathan, he said that it does fit within the code, but we need to obviously get permission from you guys on placement.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion from the board?
I'd move approval for the sign variance.
Okay, do I have a second?
Patterson, second.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor by roll call. English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Great. And you'll be hearing more about the Thursday piece, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank
Everyone
you.
have a great
All right,
night.
take care. Thanks. Bye,
Thanks.
Kevin.
Bye.
All right, next we have approved request for variance from sign code for the Falmouth Community Services Campus, 744, 790 Main Street, Town of Falmouth. Peter, are you or Julian, who's going to present? I mean, we have it in our packet, but
Yeah,
there we go.
A couple introductory comments, Madam Chair.
Excellent.
And then Peter can supplement. The board may recall several months ago now, we had a discussion regarding the signage for the Community Services Campus. And there was a suggestion and discussion with the board about involving the school community, which we have. And we've taken a couple of suggested renderings, which seem to be most representative of good communication, and bringing those to the board as a couple examples that we could be pursuing. But also, Madam Chair, this requires the approval of a sign variance by the select board in order for us to be able to proceed, because this sign is closer to the road right away than is the normal requirement, and it is also a bit oversized for obvious reasons, given the number of town departments that are in the community services campus. So Peter has put a couple renderings up, and I would defer to Peter for some additional comments.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, so the two slides that we've shown here, one represents at Member Patterson's suggestion, we worked with the high school design class, graphic arts design class, and they came up with the first rendering that you saw. This right, so Anna Senzali is a student, and her design was selected from among her classmates as the one that we found to be the best fit for us. She had suggested, this could be done in a couple of different materials. It could be wood, it could be PVC. We do have some concerns with wood. It looks great when you first put it up. It is difficult to maintain. It's more subject to vandalism. And as I said, it doesn't wear as well. Both signs would be externally lit from below. Tom, if you could advance to the next slide, please. So this second one was a design prepared by Lotus Sign Company. And what we might want to do is combine some elements of the two. Primarily, we're here tonight to seek a variance for the size of the sign, which is 20 square feet, which exceeds the limit of 8, I believe it is. And I should mention the sign would be set back about 4 feet from the edge of the road, which represents the the town property line or the parcel property line, if you will. Very similar location to the previous sign.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Peter or Julian on this? Huge thanks to the students. That's so great, Sam. That was a wonderful idea. Doug Brown and then Sam.
I have one question. I think that the sign maximum would be 16 feet rather than 8. And so we're only 4 feet over.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah, you had in the packet, you had a sort of a lower profile sign that was more horizontal rather than a vertical ladder sign. Is that one of the options that we're looking at also?
We rejected that. It's, because it's going to be placed perpendicular, two-sided perpendicular to the road, it wasn't going to work as well for us. We were also we were cautioned that it would be more vulnerable to the wind.
The lower side?
Yeah, because it's got that wider span.
Wider.
Okay. It just seems it just seems like that's slightly raised up in that area currently, like a berm there, so that at least the height would be augmented for that lower profile sign. And since people are going to be traveling by there usually frequently, eventually they're going to be able to pick up the information. So I don't see, honestly, the reason for putting a sign that kind of is larger than everything else around it or higher in that particular area. I'm sorry to hear you've rejected it.
And I'm just going to read one comment from Ellie Costa, and I think the answer to this is yes. She was asking, could the student's design be translated into other materials? And I think yes, it's flexible in that it could be certainly done in a variety of materials. But tonight we're really just sort of looking at a proposed idea of a sign. We don't have a final one in front of us, but it's really about the variance for the size. So it goes to the issue that Sam was raising as to whether or not we feel a sign of a 20-foot square foot nature is needed or appropriate. So any other, yep, Doug Brown.
So it's only 4 square feet above the standard, allowable. It's got 4 different services, and I think if we want to be able to have the sign visible, I think for 4 different services, I think a reasonable request.
Thank you. Anyone else? Doug Jones?
I would echo that, and I'd move approval of the sign variance.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Patterson, second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor by roll call. English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Great, thank you. And
Thank you.
maybe when we settle on something, if Anna Sanzali is available, she could be part of that unveiling process, or the whole class if they're still, I don't know, some of them maybe have graduated, but that's really just a wonderful way to kind of pull in that community engagement for this community resource. So really great, thank you. Julian?
Madam Chair, just wanted to note for information for the board that, as you know, the existing Gus Candy sign has just been relocated to more of the middle part of that mounded area in front of the complex. And at an appropriate time down the road, we may be coming back to the board with a suggestion that sign get a new treatment and a really an upgrade. But we do not have anything on that to bring forward at this point. But I just wanted to alert you that might be coming in the future for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, I think Peter is going to give us some information on Farming Falmouth. They had a request for a memorandum of understanding for use of part of the Tony Andrews Farm property. And just to note, what we're doing tonight is just starting this conversation. We don't have an MOU to present for our vote tonight. It's really to kind of kick off the discussion about this issue. So welcome, Tyler. And Peter, do you want to, I'm just going to step out for a minute. Peter, do you want to just explain sort of the background and go from there?
Sure, happy to. So the board may recall that the town purchased the Tony Andrews Farm property, and at the time of the acquisition, we created a couple of different parcels, a couple of different lots. And one of them has a conservation restriction on it for farming, and 2 of them are house lots. One is leased to Jeff Andrews along with the farm as part of the farm lease, and the other has the historic farmhouse on it. And that parcel has been discussed and considered for a number of potential uses, but the board and the town have not isolated a planned use for that parcel of land. We just received in the middle of the week a request from Tyler Barron on behalf of Farm Falmouth to consider a feasibility grant that is available from the state of Massachusetts Department of Energy, Environment, and Agriculture, the EEA. I'm not sure if I have the acronym right. And at this point, I think the question is there an interest on behalf of the board to move forward with a grant? And if so, what is the best way to do that?
Perfect.
And with that, I would, Madam Chair, if it is agreeable with you, I think Tyler can speak more to the specifics of the grant.
Sure. Welcome, Tyler. If you just want to unmute yourself and kind of speak a little bit more specifically to some of those details, then the board can ask any questions.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, yeah, so the grant is a state grant, as Peter said. We're hoping to conduct a feasibility study for the potential of a multi-use building in that space. That's something that would hopefully add to the long-term viability of the farm. It would help to produce some educational outcomes. It would include something like a shared use kitchen or commercial kitchen, community kitchen, many terms for that. And then would also help with aspects of food distribution within the town. And something that's a part of this grant that we're also trying to address are different aspects of the Massachusetts local food plan. The grant is giving preference to projects that help to, or that work on the recommendations of that food plan. And we're going to be gearing our feasibility study around that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Tyler? Okay, any?
Oh, I was just going to say, with any grant, is there, what are the implications of complying with the grant?
What are the, what requirements? Sorry, I got distracted by the squeaky toy in the background.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the hazards of Zoom meetings. I think he was asking if there are any sort of strings attached to the grant.
Exactly. Are we obligated to plant 25 trees a year for life or anything like that?
No, it's a reimbursement grant. I think that'd be the one part to note. So funding would have to come from the town initially, and then it's quarterly reimbursed based on an invoice. Other aspects of the grants, no, I mean, it would be us making sure that we are abiding by what we said we're going to do. The grant, I'm pretty sure all projects need to be completed by July 31st of 2021. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so really for tonight, it's, as Peter was saying, just to really get a sense of whether or not this board wants to kind of pursue going in this direction. So it sounds like I think a pretty positive response. So Peter, do you need something specific from us?
So, as I said, we really have not had an opportunity to vet this grant at all. I took a very quick look on the website this afternoon. I guess it would just be important to, my understanding is this is a feasibility study only, so I don't think there are any long-term commitments here for the town. But, the context in terms of what we might do with that site, I think we looked at, we talked about a number of potentials. One would be for the town to continue to retain the property and to find a lessor or a tenant to use it for, a variety of potential purposes, provided that they are compatible with the adjacent farm use. It could potentially include residential housing. I think there was some consensus among the board and the staff that we didn't want to be a landlord for residential tenants. That's a problematic relationship to be in that the town has typically avoided and probably would like to continue to avoid. But that said, that the lot could be sold for housing, the lot could be sold to Farm Falmouth for an agricultural purpose, the lot could be sold or it could be leased. So those are among the potential scenarios that we looked at. There is certainly a benefit to the farm to be able to have access to sheds and outbuildings for storage and equipment that could be accommodated within the existing farm parcel, but certainly if it would probably benefit the farm if those buildings could be housed on the adjacent lot. So I guess I just wanted to mention that context for what had been talked about previously for that parcel of land. And I guess the question now is with the, I believe the deadline is September 15th for submission of the grant. Tyler, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So we have a limited window of opportunity to apply for the grant, and I guess if we're going to go forward we'd probably be looking to Tyler and Farm Falmouth to assist with preparation of the grant. But as I understand it, because the town owns the property, the grant would be submitted on behalf of the town.
Right. Doug Brown?
Well, I have long thought that we should keep that house involved with the farm for, just until we get something really solid going. I know, Jeff's been there forever. He's going to want to retire someday until we get the new organization figured out exactly what's going to happen. I think we should hold on to that property. And I think Mr. Barron's point about the ability to build up an additional accessory structure there is pretty important, because I know it's very difficult to roll back conservation restrictions once they're put in place. So I don't know how that would impact other buildings being built, but I suspect he might be possibly right about that. So I would be interested to go forward with and keep that door open for now.
I mean, a feasibility study really is a first step to having any kind of plan, for this really important asset. So, I think if there's money for us to be able to do that, we know we're going to have to engage in a process of that type at some point to really get a good assessment of how best to maximize this property. So I would, go ahead, Tyler. Yep.
Yeah. Given our concern that property is sort of essential to the viability of the farm, and the sort of uncertainty of what is going to happen with it post, I think October 20th is the date that Jeff Andrews has access to that in the lease. The hope is that this feasibility study would hopefully sort of at least put that decision off in some regard, or at least allow that decision to be made with more information about what could be made there and how that space could be most utilized.
Yep.
With the farm in mind.
Yep, makes sense. So I guess you're hearing from the board that we are positive about moving forward in the town working, in order to put this grant forward.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have something on there here that says to vote it. And I don't know that a vote is necessary, but I think, Peter, do you have enough information from us to be able to engage in that process?
I do. In terms of information, yes. In terms of the normal process, normally there would be a vote of the Finance Committee and a vote of the Board of Selectmen,
right? Which
was not really noticed on the agenda because we weren't really aware of what the agenda item was about. So, I'm not sure if.
So here would be my suggestion. I don't know when Finance Committee is next meeting. But if we are meeting on Thursday and we need to notice it, if we're going to meet on Thursday this week and we need to just have a vote on something we've already discussed, I think we could go ahead and do that pending Finance Committee's review. What do you, Sam, do you know when they're meeting next? Or Julian, sorry.
I believe the Finance Committee may be meeting this week. We can double check that with Jennifer Mullen. But I also wanted to note, Madam Chair, that it was just wasn't aware till the comment this evening that this may be fully a reimbursement grant. And if that is the case, we're going to have to explore the concept of appropriation of funds, as you know, because funds cannot be spent, and if they're not appropriated in advance, reimbursement particularly. So that's something that we'll need to explore with the finance director and others. And we may not have all the answers by Thursday night. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay, great. And then, but bearing in mind the deadline is September 9th. 15th, excuse me. Okay. Tyler?
Would it be worth our while to attend the Finance Committee and follow up on this, or?
I think you need to reach out. I mean, I think Julian will probably follow up as well, but yes, generally with grants, the Finance Committee weighs in and they give their opinion as to whether or not it's sort of a fiscally prudent, grant for us to apply and participate in before we really vote on it. So I would absolutely reach out to the chair, Keith Schwagel, and see if you can get onto their agenda at their next meeting, given that it's fairly timely. Sam?
Yeah, they have not published any meeting date to my knowledge, but since we have town meeting, it's going to happen on September 14th. They're likely to meet in advance of that meeting, so there might be an opportunity to get on that agenda. So just that's my thought, but I don't know anything definitive.
I think the chair, the finance committee chair, may have a process where he signs off on grant applications without putting it on the agenda of a meeting.
Right. I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Full committee.
Yeah. What I would say is what they used to do, because I was on the grant committee, you didn't bring it up in the whole. It was a group of maybe 3 individuals who would review and make a comment on it. So it didn't have to go on the agenda. But again, that's really up to the chair and however finance committee wants to address that. So I would absolutely reach out. And then, you know, this board could always, I think, could probably always vote a positive recommendation subject to approval by finance committee in that way. I mean, we've done that before. Sam?
Yeah, and it's also procedurally, we can also withdraw the application to the grant, you know, sometime in the future. But the important thing is get the application in on time.
Yeah, and then funds can be appropriate at a later date, at a town meeting date. I'm sure, you know, again, I don't have all the details of it, but I think you understand there's a timeliness component to this. And so reaching out to finance committee is definitely worthwhile. And then Mr. Suso and Mr. Johnson-Staub will kind of review that information with our finance director to look at the other details that we'll have to consider.
Great.
Okay. Yes, Sam.
One other comment. I mean, I guess it's my bag, but I mean, it's somehow or other we need to discuss the organizational responsibility if this property is going to be used for whatever the feasibility study might suggest is an appropriate use. But I think underneath of this, to build trust that this is a productive use of town property, there needs to be some addressing of who the organization is and how it's going to be managed.
Great.
That's probably, Madam Chair, if I could, one more important sort of operational point to follow on what Mr. Patterson was just saying, and that is that if there were to, you know, the town can submit a grant with the assistance of anyone, including Falmouth Farming. That's not an issue. But if there were a vision, which I believe Falmouth is interested in, of Falmouth operating facilities on the town property, we would have to go through a request for proposals process. That would have to be competitively bid.
Exactly. Okay. Anything else? Great. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it. So we'll look forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, next we have discussed size and composition of the Transportation Management Committee. So we did receive a request from that committee. They actually, I believe, had voted at their last meeting to request that the size be diminished to 7 members. And the fact is, oh, go ahead, Doug.
It sounds like a very reasonable request, and I would go ahead and make that motion that we reduce it from 9 to 7.
Perfect. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Patterson, second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Oh, Julian. Yep.
Madam Chair, I just want to clarify that recommendation would result in losing the referred member from the Historical Commission. So that just wanted to be clear. That is in the letter of request as well. So I wanted to make that clear, going from 9 to 7.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Sorry, Doug?
I'll amend my motion to include that notation about the removing the Historical Commission representative.
Okay, thank you.
Second still.
Okay, all those in favor, by roll call, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown, aye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Great, thank you. We have some minutes to approve. Sam, you're usually our minute taskmaster. Did you see anything?
Yeah. Yes, for the minutes of Monday, July 27th, 2020, I found them to be substantially correct, so I moved to approve and release for public access.
Okay, second. Okay, all those in favor, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown eye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Okay,
For the minutes of Monday, August 10th, 2020, on page 2, I have some suggested edits.
okay,
If you look down about 2/3 of the way for the paragraph that starts, Mr. Brown asked if they maintain a file of the public comments made at previous select board meetings. Chair English Braga explained that it says no anything, and I think that no should be removed so that it reads explain that anything mailed to the select board is part of a public record that may be searched. I think that's an extraneous no. So that was one edit that I would suggest.
Okay.
Somebody disagrees. And then another one on page 9. I don't know, maybe it's my technical editing experience, but I dislike double negatives, especially when it really is difficult to read. And so if you go down under number 2 on page 9,
yep,
and about 2/3 of the way down through that paragraph, and you may see only get water if not being used for non-essential use. And I just think it should really read only get water if being used for essential use.
okay,
Start going through negatives like that, and it's easy to lose track of what the meaning is. So with those 2 edits, I would move approval and release for public access.
okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown?
Brown eye.
Jones?
Jones, aye.
Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Okay. And how about,
I did not get copies of those other minutes that were listed in our agenda.
no, the 6th and the 2nd are still being prepared.
Okay.
There was a note in there that says that, and I think that's also true for, do you have the executive session for the 10th?
I
Okay,
did not
so we're
receive
still waiting on those.
Okay.
Okay,
Let you take
excellent,
care of it.
okay. Individual selectmen reports. I'm just gonna go by the way I see you on my screen. Nancy?
I don't have anything.
Okay, Doug Brown?
So I attended the Assembly of Delegates meeting this week, and it was a very interesting. There's a lot of I'm surprised and impressed at how much grant funding the county administrator facilitates with the county commissioners and stuff. Really a long list of money that they hand out every week, including that Project Blue for $700,000 secured for the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, who's going to manage it. The new county dredge operator, Ken Crillo, was introduced, and he answered questions about his experience and his knowledge. And he seems like a pretty sharp guy. He's got a long history. He's a commissioned officer in the NOAA, and he had a couple of businesses that he had his own business, and he worked for other businesses in, around, and under and on the sea, is how he described it. So he certainly seems to know his way around the ocean. We had a very interesting update from Carrie Parcell and a couple other ladies, Patty Delaney and Michelle White, were also there supporting with information. They're going to, the county is going to fund a study, and they expect it to be around $110,000 or so to figure out whether or not it'd be practical to have a real big new recycling solid waste facility out on the base, not just for recycling, but for waste transfer that maybe could really help reduce the costs to towns. You can't get a permit for a incinerator like CMAS to waste energy because those are no longer being given out apparently, but they're considering gasification or packaging so that when the stuff gets put on the train, it's more compact. So this will just be a study to see if it would be feasible, and it hopefully will be completed by September of next year if all things go as planned. So that was pretty interesting. Let's see, what else was there of interest? Those were the big things. The county commissioners declared Juneteenth as an official Barnstable County holiday for next year. It's interesting. What else? Fire Training Academy funding application is in Conservation Commission, causing delays because there's, I guess, conservation issues with developing the fire academy out there at Otis. So that's it for Assembly delegates, unless you have any questions. And I move on to the Steamship Authority Long Range Planning Task Force. We had our first meeting last week.
Oh, good.
It was a very interesting meeting of just getting to meet everyone and know, just get a sense of their take on current conditions. And I asked a lot of questions about the vineyard, and I shared some of my crazy ideas about developing infrastructure on their island, of which I know not much. So I learned a lot, and I got a lot of good answers, and looking forward to working with them. It was a good meeting, I thought, from the beginning. Julian joined us, so he can attest to the pleasantness of the environment. I felt like it was a really good start.
Great. Thank you so much, Doug. Doug
Okay.
Jones?
All set.
Sam?
Yeah, let's see. I attended an EDIC board meeting recently, and just for your information as feedback, the board voted to discontinue their effort to administer a recovery loan program. I think they realized that there were just too many hurdles, and it's going to be prolonged if they were successful. So, second thing they did look at, or that else is going on, is working to complete that community broadband feasibility study. And consider it how to promote that as an initiative for providing better service to the town, internet services. I can tell you, I just dropped out 3 times tonight, so I'm very much interested in that. I attended the Affordable Housing Committee, and I just wanted to mention to you that we are moving forward with a housing summit on October 14th. That's after Columbus Day. Do we use that term anymore? And it'll be on a Wednesday night, and even though it's normally it would be a Conservation Commission hearing broadcast by FTC, they're not going to. Concom is not meeting that night, so it's an open meeting for it to be broadcast so that people that are watching TV could see it in real time. Obviously, we're going to be inviting panelists to come and present. The last thing is just this: I attended the CPC meeting last Thursday. They're changing their proposal. Well, maybe I should say they've moved over to only accepting applications for time urgent projects for both the November town meeting and for the April town meeting. So they're basically skipping a whole year for their normal application and project vetting go around because of COVID-19, of course, and also because the revenue picture is somewhat sketchy at this point. So, so essentially that's what's happening. The proposal due dates have been slipped out, but really they're only going to be accepting time urgent project proposals. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. One thing I just wanted to know, a few people had asked me to just remind people that there is a comment period currently open now, and I believe that the comment period ends on September 9th. And this is in regards to the plan to have a construction and operation of a multi-purpose machine gun range at Camp Edwards. This was something that was in the Cape Cod Times on August 8th, and there was a public notice, and the information about where to send public comment is in that. So if anyone wants to Google it, and they can look at the Cape Cod Times, but you know, I had several requests to have the board weigh in, and I said we don't have, it's not timely because we couldn't put it on our agenda, but certainly the public should know that there is a deadline and that public comments are being accepted until September 9th. Okay. Mr. Suso, Town Manager's Report. Oh, go ahead, Doug Brown.
I was gonna say, it would be nice if we would get a note from somebody out at the facility that they're proposing something like that, and our communication there. I don't know. I would think we would have got an email from them. It's a pretty big project, 200 acres.
Right. Yeah, I think it just we didn't receive anything as a town, just the publishing in the paper. So
right.
It's a good point, Doug. Julian, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I was, as Doug noted, I was pleased to join him at last week's Steamship Authority Long Range Task Force. And so plenty of interesting things to come on that one. As a reminder, moderator David Vieira has affirmed the reconvening of Springtown meeting and its 30 plus remaining articles for 7 p.m. on Monday, September 14th in the Falmouth High School Field House. Falmouth schools have announced an anticipated return to classes beginning Monday, September 21st, and we continue to work with Superintendent Lori Doerr and the school department in multiple areas in support of this important reopening. Also, Town Hall and Town Administrative offices will be closed on Monday, September 7th for the Labor Day holiday. And with Springtown meeting reconvening on Monday, September 14th, the Select Board's next regular business meeting will be on Monday, September 21st. And of course, as Megan noted, anticipating a special purpose meeting this Thursday, I believe that's August 28th, at 5 p.m. for that matter that came up in the drive-in, presuming that the board members can make that and that we'll have a quorum. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Just one other quick thing, and I should have said this in maybe the announcements, but I don't always agree with Mark Finneran, but has been a staple of our meetings. And Mark's mother, who he was really a wonderful caregiver to, passed away. He had actually stepped back from running the last time, which we know he, has sort of been someone who's run regularly to be on the select board, and he really stepped back to help care for her. And she was a longtime resident here in Falmouth. And so I just wanted to share my condolences. Mark was a really dedicated caregiver to his mother. And we know how much he loves these meetings, and we haven't seen him at these meetings of late because of providing care for her. So I just wanted to let him know that he and his family are in my thoughts. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn. Jones?
Patterson, second.
Okay, all those in favor, English Braga, aye. Taylor?
Taylor, aye.
Brown? Looks like Doug Brown froze. Jones?
Jones, aye.
The internet is not our friend tonight. Patterson?
Patterson, aye.
Okay, that's enough for us to have. We've got enough of a vote there. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.